So, how you doing, man? Thank you for taking some time out to talk to me. All I need is really 5 minutes from you. I want to talk a bit about transit deserts.
Gotcha. Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to.
You grew up in New York City. You went to school in the city, right? And you've built one company, and now you're building another, living and working in New York City, in an urban area. How do transit deserts negatively impact communities in these areas?
Wow. Yeah. Well, so transit deserts, first and foremost, are places in a city that have remarkably limited access to public transit, where although you're in New York, you are really far away from the nearest subway or the bus lines that are, sponsored by the state or by the city. They don't actually run frequently enough for you to rely on. So because of this, your area would be defined as a transit desert. This is a huge issue in New York. Over 600,000 people live in transit deserts, even though we have supposedly the best public transit system, the MTA, throughout the country. But a lot of people are affected by this issue who live in transit deserts, which manifests itself in the form of people having really, really long commutes when they go to work or to go to school. There are a lot of people, especially in Brooklyn and Queens, where if you wanted to go north or south in Brooklyn, you actually can't do that through the subway system. You have to go east through west because there are no north or south direct subway lines. So, here's another example of how living in a transit desert manifests itself in a really bad or indirect commute. I think another example, which is probably more impactful as a whole, is the loss of economic opportunity and economic mobility. If you have a really challenging commute, you are spending more time traveling as opposed to time working and getting things done.
Explain sort of how you can have this great subway system supposedly to solve these problems of getting around, but still have this transit desert problem.
Yeah, great question. So our public transit infrastructure, so if you think subways, the actual subway train cars, the tracks, all the stations, all of that fixed infrastructure, very expensive to change and to augment.
Okay.
So as a result, over time, as more and more people, end up living in New York City, so population growth, and then secondly, gentrification, over time, you have more people living in the outskirts of the boroughs, but the fixed public transit infrastructure, the subways, the actual subway train cars, or the number of cars that are available, and then the actual stations, those things don't change. So this is where you can have that dichotomy where New York City still has the best public transit system in the country, but you still have, upwards or close, nearly 1 million people in New York who can't rely on public transit because they live too far away or the system isn't really accessible to them in the way that they need.
Where does Dollaride come in to solve this transit desert issue?
The way Dollaride solves this issue is by complementing public transit. So we, first and foremost, partner with local informal transit drivers. In New York City, we call them dollar van drivers, but in Miami, they're referred to as jitney drivers. And you find these types of drivers or these networks all around the country. They're usually in urban cities and oftentimes on the outskirts, and used by middle class, low income and middle income folks, and they're very popular in ethnic communities too. This represents the supply of drivers and vehicles that are readily available to us right underneath our noses. So what Dollaride does is we provide these drivers with our technology, a mobile app that helps them find new routes in transit deserts where they can serve the population of people who need a ride to the subway or a more direct route to their destination.
Look, man, I appreciate you taking some time. I am definitely going to be reaching out more to you. I know you're very busy, but I'm going to be reaching out more to you. Like I said, all I need is about 5 minutes and we'll be good to go. So thanks, man.
No problem. Anytime, Taj.